All right, good evening, everybody. So, like I said, we're doing a little bit of catch up for Memorial Day. So, we'll cover chapters 1 and 2. We're going to do SIG codes 1 and 2, and we're going to do math 1 and 2 as well. So, a little catch up from Monday. All right, without further ado, let's get into pharmacy and healthcare. All right, so think back in medicine, things weren't separated. Actually, doctors had to make their own drugs, their own concoctions when they're treating patients, hundreds, thousands of years ago. So for today, we're going to go over a brief history. I'm not going to touch on every point. You can look in your book for further detail. We'll talk about different economic environments, as I mentioned, not just only hospital or retail, but business, technology, and research as well. And then everywhere we go, computers, computers, computers. Like I said, the PBM, Pharmacy Benefit Manager, they're a pure IT company. They don't sell anything physical, they just provide a service for the insurance companies. Origins. So superstition and belief. Gods and demons cause illness because you didn't make them happy. You didn't do your rituals. You didn't sacrifice a virgin, so they got mad at you. Or the stars align a certain way, so it's bad luck. Don't go out. Right? So that's what people believed. And if you got sick, the only way to treat you was to communicate with the gods, demons, or read the stars. So who was able to talk to the gods? Yeah, these guys, these shamans, right? So some of these guys would eat psychedelic substances, put themselves in a state, and then they go, oh, I came back talking to the gods, and this is what they told me to do. So that gave away, of course, to the scientific method. So the father of medicine is Hippocrates, and what he did was he looked at one symptom at a time, and he tried to use one cure at a time. So more systematic, more scientific base. And more importantly, he wrote things down. So if he saw the same conditions, he knew what didn't work, so he tried something else the next time he saw it. So no more beliefs in gods or superstition, right? Going towards more science, medicine. Bases of medicine. Plants, animals, and minerals. So plants, herbs, many things, right? You're familiar with plants as medication. Name me a drug that comes from animals. A little harder, right? But nowadays we get insulin from animals, right? We get a pork, a beef source, or a human source. Minerals, that just comes, of course, from the dirt. But of course, we can't absorb it straight from the dirt. We need it from plants and animals. Cortisone?
Remember you talked about the endocrine system that for pain you can use.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like for like football players, halftime they get a cortisone shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a steroid-based hormone. So that's not gonna be a plant or animal derived back in ancient times. So this is still back hundreds, thousands of years ago. So that cortisone shot wasn't until the chemical revolution for us. So about the 40s and 50s. So let's go back. First ancient civilization. So the first settlement, the first civilization was the Samaritans. So modern day Middle East, where Iran and Iraq is. So about 250. So that was their knowledge. So just remember throughout history. So don't worry about the exact number, but throughout history, our knowledge has increased. So here in China, about 365 plant-based medication. And then the chemical revolution. So a lot of petroleum products. And now instead of finding it out in nature from animals or plants, we can make it synthetically. Today we go beyond synthesizing drugs. We use biologics. Are you guys familiar with biologics? So we make drugs from living cells or tissue. So animals. As mentioned, we used to extract insulin from pigs or cows. Now we can genetically modify E. coli to make insulin for us. So that is biotechnology. Any blood products, right? From living cells, from a living host, all the plasma, blood cells, those are all biologic agents. Three examples of plant-based medication that has been used throughout time. So, chicona for malaria. So the bark of the Peruvian tree. So Peru is in the tropics, a lot of rain. You get a lot of mosquitoes. Coca, you guys may be familiar with coca. That's where cocaine is extracted from. So that's a good local anesthetic. So before this, they had to put people under. So they had them inhale ether or chloroform to put them under for surgery. Here now we got a local numbing agent. And then the bark of the white willow, we have salicylic acid. That's what naturally comes from the bark, but we were able to make easier in the lab ASA. So acetylsalicylic acid is aspirin. So make sure you guys know that is that, which is the same as that.
What about the opium?
The opium? Oh, that comes from the poppy plant. So that's another example. Yeah, so opiates, they come from the poppy plant. So you guys probably seen footage of that in the Middle East, of the poppy fields. All right, what did Hippocrates use as the basis for diagnosing illness? What did he use? Observation, very good. All right, he looked at one thing at a time and he wrote it down. This worked, this didn't work, this worked this time, didn't work last time. What were the sources of medication? The three sources mentioned. Plants, animals, and, very good, minerals. Make sure you give an example of each. All right, let's match the plant with the medication. So the cinchona, which drug? So quinine for malaria. Coca is cocaine, and the white willow, we extracted salicylic acid. Yeah. Acetylsalicylic acid is aspirin. All right, medication in use. Salicylic acid, what is the purpose? Is it an anesthetic, analgesic, or anti-malaria? Ana, yep, Ana is against, algia is pain. So it's against pain, painkiller. How about quinine? Anti-malaria. Have you guys ever heard of tonic water? So is it gin and tonic or vodka tonic? Gin. Alright, so old fashioned. If it's gin, it's old fashioned. That's in the South. If it's vodka tonic, that's new age, new world. So tonic water, what does it contain? Quinine. Yeah, that bitter taste of tonic water is the quinine. And where did they use it? Down in the South to treat malaria, right? In the swamps. And then cocaine is, so against, Ana again is against. Estia is sensation. So here a local anesthetic against sensation. All right, let's go through the decades, or these millennia, I should say, the thousands and thousands of years. So I may not point every single one out, but just know the trends. So here the first settlement about 250, and then in China, 1,000 years later, increase, right? And then 1,500 years later, this is in Egypt. So it almost doubled. So throughout time, our knowledge has increased substantially. And then comes in Hippocrates. Do you guys know what BCE is? Before current era. So they no longer use before Christ, after Christ, because people change their minds, I guess. So it's before current era. Yeah, CE is current era. BCE is before current era. So a new change to be politically correct. So here we got the current era. Let's go to Galen. So 4 humors. So humors are liquids in the body, and if you were sick, you were out of balance of one of these humors. So you gotta get these humors back in balance if you want to reestablish health. So for example, blood was one of the humors. And if you had too much blood, it manifests the symptom of fever. So how would you reduce a fever if you believe in the 4 humors? How would you reduce a fever? You drain blood, exactly. Trepanation. So you had a president that actually died from bloodletting. Do you know which one? I'll give you a hint. George W. No, George Washington.
I'm trying to kill him. Come on, man. What do you know?
Nah, just George Washington. Yeah. So I guess he had a fever. They took some blood, but guess what? Still had a fever. Still too much blood, so they kept on taking more blood. Yeah. Well, they didn't know better, right? It was actually washing hands. The surgeon that actually suggested we wash hands between patients got laughed out of practice. So that's how things changed. Alchemists. What is alchemy? What's in the middle of the word alchemist? Chem. What were they trying to do? Yeah, they're trying to turn PB into AU. What's PB? Peanut butter. What's AU? Gold. So these guys are trying to get power, trying to print their own money, right? That's the normal day of trying to get your Bitcoin value up. So, could they do this in front of people who had power? No, because if you got the gold, you got the power. So the kings didn't like you. So they had to do this in secret. But guess what? They wrote everything down, kind of like Hippocrates. So every time they failed, they categorize all their failures into a nice little chart. So what's this chart called today? There you go. So that's how they came up with a periodic table based on trial and error and trying to make gold. Here we are, 1500 in the current era, so about 600, 500 years ago. We got 1200 now drugs. So definitely increase over the years. Paracelsus, he said, you know what, Galen? I don't think so. Your theory is going to kill George Washington in the future. So what he said is, hey, you know what, these alchemists, they got a lot of info. And now that I got the textbook, the #1 selling book in the world at the time, why don't we just make our own concoctions, our own drugs? China, 2000. So that increase in knowledge again. Smallpox? Well, actually, smallpox was kind of observed, and they made a vaccine in China a long time ago. So what they observed was cowpox. If you got cowpox, you survived. Got these lesions, most of you survived. You got cowpox. If you had smallpox, 90% death rate. But what they observed was people who had cowpox in the past never got smallpox. So they go, you know what? Everybody, I think we should all get cowpox. So they took cowpox lesions, dried them, ground them up, and had people snort them to expose themselves to cowpox. So you're likely to live, but in the future, you didn't get smallpox, which was likely to kill you. So that was kind of a vaccine, a crude way of making a vaccine back in the day, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Morphine, not bad. General anesthesia. So I recall ether or chloroform. You inhale that, and that puts you out. If they give you too much, what happens? Yeah, you never wake up. If they didn't give you enough, when they're sawing your leg off at the barber chair, what happens? You wake up. Barbers used to be the surgeons. If you need teeth pulled, if you need a limb amputated. What is pasteurization? Name a product that is pasteurized. And why? Why?
Bacteria.
Yeah, so we heat it up real quick. It kills everything, and we cool it back down so it stays milk, right? If we keep the temperature up, it turns into cheese. So lots of things are now pasteurized. So he came up with, hey, there are little things in the air and all around us that cause disease. So that was the start of understanding disease. Cocaine for local, so no more general. We don't have to kill you now. We can just numb the area that needs to be cut off. Here's aspirin, ASA. A lot of times, since aspirin is an acid, it'll upset the stomach, so they'll coat it with an entera coating. Enter is intestines, right? So entera coated aspirin. That way it dissolves in the intestines instead of the stomach, introducing more acid, causing an upset stomach. All right, purified insulin. Fleming accidentally discovered penicillin. So he was actually dirty. He was growing bacteria. Bacteria makes nice round colonies, but it got contaminated with mold. So there was mold on one side, bacteria on the other, and in the middle, nothing was growing. So what was happening in the middle? What was that? What was killing what off?
The mold was getting killed off by something.
The mold, but nothing was living in the middle, in between. Remember, these things are fighting for food, and the petri dish is just food. So he discovered that it was the mold that was pumping in penicillin. And then the bacteria can't live where there's penicillin because they die. So now there's food for the mold, right? So in the microbe world, it's all chemical warfare. So how does the bacteria counteract? It makes its own chemicals that breaks down the penicillin. So attack, counterattack. And bacteria is very fast at mutating, so they can pick up resistance very quickly. What are progesterones?
Hormone.
Which type? Male or female?
Male.
Male
Female.
hormone.
Female.
No, they're male hormones.
No?
Yeah, progesterones are male hormones in the female body. They just call them progesterones.
Okay.
Right? So men have both estrogen and progesterone. It's just the balance, right? The ratio. Same with women. They cycle estrogen and progesterone in their menstrual cycle. So we were able to get synthetic testosterone, synthetic progesterone from Mexican wild yams. So any athletes who abuse it, currently that's their source. DNA, only about 70 years ago. Wow, very quick. Now, like I said in the other class, you can get your DNA sequence for a couple $100 and it takes like a month. It used to take billions of dollars in time. Birth control, so better control of hormones and understanding of hormone. Epogen, so epogen is from your kidneys and it stimulates red blood cell production. So this was another agent that was abused by athletes because red blood cells carry oxygen, and if you want more stamina, this is one way of cheating. All right, review questions. Man's understanding and use of plants as medicine has what over the centuries?
Increase.
Definitely increased. And now we're manipulating genes, right? Pretty crazy stuff. What is another name for acetylsalicylic acid?
ASA.
ASA, right? ASA, which is which is aspirin, right? So what's a brand name for aspirin? Yeah, there's many of them. All right, Hippocrates. What was his contribution to medicine?
C.
So he was, keyword, close observation. How about Paracelsus? Paracelsus.
Established the use of
Yeah, very good. So if you said A, you are correct. So remember, he rejected Galen, and he said these alchemists has this nice book. We can make our own drugs. What did Galen do to kill George Washington? So he believed in the four humors. Pasteur? What is pasteurization? Yeah, we got to kill all the germs in milk, even orange juice and other items. Cheese, somebody said. Fleming? He had bad lab technique and accidentally discovered penicillin. Chemical warfare in the microbial world. Life expectancy. So about a 20, 30 year increase from 50 to about 80 in the last 100 years. So what has contributed to us living longer? What do you guys think?
Stuff that's listed.
Yep.
Please.
It used to be, what, a 3-day buggy ride to the nearest hospital, if there is one.
Jeez. So you're just gonna die a little, right?
We have things called life support, right? We got gas, pumps, anything to keep you going. Do we have a food problem? We don't have a food problem. We just have a calorie problem in America. So we have better nutrition, more access to food, more knowledge of nutrition. We got better drugs. Ooh, vaccines a big one. We're not dying from measles, mumps, smallpox. Cowpox, you live sometime. Antibiotics, definitely. But nowadays, we got a lot of resistance to antibiotics. So everything in combination has led to this increase in life expectancy. It didn't mean there was no 80-year-olds hundreds and hundreds of years ago. There were. It's just rare because most people died before they turned one. Right? So that kind of averaged into that 50 years infant mortality. Because drugs have profound effects, in America we have regulation, the FDA. And we'll go through pharmacy law and regulation next week in chapter 3. So the manufacturer must prove that the drug is safe and effective before they can sell it. They do it through research and development, and that includes human trials. So clinical trial means they're testing on living people. You and I, healthy, and those with the disease. Takes upwards of 15 years at a cost, nowadays closer to $2 billion investment. If the FDA says no, what happened to your time and money? You learn a lot of ways not to do it, just like Hippocrates, right? So it's a big gamble in America. And then even after your drug is approved, there's phase 4. They look to see if new problems rise. And if there's new problems, what happened to the drug? Drug gets recalled from the market. DNA. Nowadays we understand more, and drug now can turn on and off your genes specifically. So let's see, patents. Patents protect discovery for 17 years, but this starts before research and development. It starts at your IND filing, investigational new drug. This is when you tell the world, this is my chemical, nobody can use it, and your time ticks now. So if it takes 10 to 15 years, how many years do you have left? Yeah. So you got to do it very, very efficiently. So after that, no more patent protection, we get generic drugs. What's cheaper, brand or generic? generic. And this is why. Because did they spend 10 to 15 years for the generic? Did they spend the $1 to $2 billion? No. It's all public information. You can just copy. So a generic is straight up copy of the brand. Genetics. So this is the new way. Not only are they manipulating genes of embryos to screen for disease or put in desirable traits, but now they're being able, or they have techniques to manipulate adult genetics. So that's pretty profound. We'll see in the future if you want to, like one blue eye, you just make an appointment, get a blue eye, and then the next day you have a blue eye. Maybe it's going to be that simple in the future. RX today, tons and tons of pharmacies, but they're mostly now which companies? CVS and Walgreens. So they've been buying mom and pops, independent pharmacies for the last 10 to 20 years. That's why they have pretty much a 99% monopoly. So pharmacy is ranked the highest trusted profession. You gotta give the pharmacist all the information in order for them to give you safe drug treatment. So a lot of questions are answered and rank highest year after year. Discussion. So your discussion one is pharmacy setting. So don't just focus on retail or hospital. There's these you guys can research and learn something new. So mail order, the biggest one in our area is OptumRx. Long-term care facility, so nursing homes, those pharmacies that support nursing homes, sometimes prisons, orphanages, psychiatric wards. Managed care, more insurance. Home care, more expensive to have patients in homes or hospital. So insurance company will treat patients at home. So we'll supply their medication while they're being treated at home. Mixing drugs, custom orders. PBM, as mentioned, pure IT company. And then mixing IV or sterile drugs. So these are all specialty pharmacy settings. So that's your discussion one to get you guys started. Costs. What do you guys know about the cost of healthcare? Going up, down, or staying the same? Always going up. But to control costs in pharmacy, we have third-party payers. Who are the third-party payers? The insurance companies, right? So anytime they pay out money, that is a loss to them because they had to pay out money. That's a medical loss in their eyes. So for drugs, they have a list of drugs that you can get. You ever heard that drug's not covered by your insurance? Well, that's because it's not on their formulary. They're not going to cover it. They pick and choose what they want to pay for. What do you think they'll pay for? Brand or generic? Generic. So most likely, if you want brand, you're going to have to pay a little bit higher cost, right? Generic, they'll cover it. So that's one way they control money. Have a formula. Control what drugs you can and can't get. So if you have to have something, maybe we'll change it. Like all those heartburn medications, they're all kind of the same. So one H2 antagonist for another H2 antagonist, that's fine. So you can have cimetidine versus famotidine. Maybe those you can just switch. All about controlling costs. So what has increased life expectancy? Over 20, 30 years in the last decade, last millennium, last century. Drugs, vaccines, antibiotics, or increase in hospital? How many say A? B. Right there. Very good. So you guys, very good. You guys know by now. If it looks good, then yeah, it's everything in combination. So we're living in probably the best times right now when it comes to health and health treatment. When does the patent life begin? Not how long. We know it's 17 years, but when does that clock start ticking? 17 years. That's how long you have. But when does the clock start ticking?
The 2 year at the 15?
As soon as they start the investigation of the
Start the investigation? What's that called?
or
What's that called? Investigational New Drug Application. IND. Investigational New Drug. IND. So that's telling the world, this is my chemical. There are many like it, but this one is mine. And I have the only rights to sell it for the next 17 years. But I got to get it approved. I do clinical trials before it runs out. That's just an arbitrary number that they have. Pharmacy and their setting. Hospital. Which of the following describes the hospital setting? A, B, C, D, or E? D? D? Most patient interaction? No, pharmacy techs don't interact with patients.
Okay, I think about actual hospital.
So hospital. So the key term there is they're admitted, right?
inpatient.
They're admitted. Community. Which of the following describes community?
Probably D.
Now you're correct. Right? The most patient interaction.
Okay.
So if you like people, go retail. IV infusion. B, on demand. Close.
Okay, so let's go with E.
Sterile. IVs must be sterile. How about 4, compounding? A or B? Yeah, on demand. Custom drugs. Pharmacy compounding. And lastly, a PBM is the third party administrator. TPA. So of course, get comfortable with using computers. Every pharmacy will have their own order entry system. When you take COM 103, we'll use one similar system, and you'll learn how to enter doctors, patients, process prescriptions, and print out labels as if you were in a retail pharmacy. You'll also process IVs and compounds as well. So look forward to COM 103. So computers, bunch of stuff you'll do. Enter patient info, drug info, prescriber info, take in prescriptions, process prescriptions, do inventory, security, what is that? Point of sales, so register, and then most importantly, insurance. Why is insurance the most important? Why? Because that's who pays your bills. So you bill all month, you don't get paid until next month. So drugs do not leave the pharmacy until we know they're getting paid for.
Okay.
So who's your biggest payer? What's the biggest insurance company? Medicare. So a lot of your business is going to be federal patients. All right. So that brings us to the end of pharmacy and healthcare, pretty much chapter 1. So what we'll do is we'll cover week 1, day 1 right now, which is SIG codes. SIG codes 1 and 2. So take a moment to download those items in your readings and tools.